All right, so next up, we're right on time. I'd like to introduce Jonathan Bath and Loay Kabbani to give us the match update. Morning, gentlemen. Thank you.
Morning, Mary. So we're going to give you a little bit of update on the match for 2021. No disclosures. We got this information basically from the NRMP, and really Jonathan put most of these slides together, so I must thank him very much in advance. I'm going to talk about the fellowship, and then Jonathan is going to talk about the residency. So the fellowship, I have one slide basically. We had 136 applicants. We had 29 positions. We have 77 programs. We filled this year 96%, and we had unfilled positions. But I'll dive a little bit into the numbers. When you look at the unfilled positions, we think that 96% is pretty good, but other specialties are much better than us. The applicants for the Bachelor Surgery Fellowship has been pretty stable over the last several years. And our match rate has been about the same. We did have 7 programs added for the last year. So we had 92 programs, and then 2021, we have 100 programs for vascular surgery. And that translates to 129 fellowship positions. If you look at the match for the fellowship, it's basically a 1-to-1 match, 1.1, with a match rate of about 91%. And again, we had 136 applicants. We matched 124. Of those applicants, more than 50% got the first 3 choices, one of the first 3 choices. So in conclusion, the number of applicants remained the same. Programs increased by 7, and the number of matched applicants about the same. And we'll go through these. These we went over yesterday in the general counsel, so I'm not going to go over them again. And these are again the trends for the fellowship. We went through these again. Sorry about that, guys. We have the duplicate slides over here, and we're done. Jonathan, do you want to take control?
Yep, sure.
Stand by.
Control, Pete.
Okay.
Alrighty. Okay, thanks to Loay, and really appreciate the opportunity to show you some of this. We hope not to be redundant with yesterday's talk. So the vascular residency match, as we all know, has increased greatly over the past few years. So 5 programs between 2018 and 20, 4 new programs in 19, and even 1 program in 2020. In terms of trends, you can see this is a sort of a staggering rise in the number of applicants over the past couple of years. And the programs have risen in concert, but obviously not to the same kind of level. If you look at the US applicants, and I'm not sure we should really get too worried about the breakdown. We obviously just want the best folks, but you can see that there's been a rise in US applicants, but there's been a sharp rise in total applicants, and that encompasses sort of international medical graduates, DO students, trainees overseas, etc. Just to highlight this, and for what it's worth, the interventional radiology trends are sort of interesting. I don't know what to make of this, but things were increasing for the past couple of years, slightly down last year, and that may be because of some changes in how they're doing their fellowship versus integrated programs. So just to show some comparative facts in 2019, and I think I have these numbers correct. I went over these with a fine-tooth comb, but really Dr. Sheehan should be credited for, I think, helping me navigate some of the data here. If you look at the fellowship and residency, and this is 2019, that's the latest data they have on the ACGME website, you can really see that in every category, those who are in residency are doing slightly more cases than those who are in fellowship in the main. There's a few discrepancies, but really when you look at the total numbers, did I put that down there? No, when you look at the total numbers, they're very similar. You know, there's always been this question of whether or not there is an inequity between the 2 programs. And I think we have enough data at this stage to say that really the fellowship and the residency are getting very equivalent training. So just some quick match-related bite-sized facts. You know, obviously we went to a virtual format this year, and it became the standard And I think many of us are thinking this will be the new standard. I think a lot of the fellows and integrated applicants enjoy some portions of the virtual interview. They certainly save a lot of money, perhaps up to about $4,000 to $5,000, obviously, interviewing in person. So the real question is, how should we structure interviews next year? And perhaps we can have some questions and thoughts about this. Should we do them all in person with a Zoom option? What about those people that want to travel and see, for example, Columbia, Missouri, or Henry Ford? Will there be an unfair advantage if we have some people come and some people not come? So how can we do this equitably next year and make sure that we are offering folks in-person or Zoom interviews and still do it fairly? So thank you very much.
Thank you both. There are a couple questions. Dr. Lee asked, said there are 181 05 residency applicants this year. Does this mean that 181 folks submitted an application, or did 181 applicants rank a vascular program? Because I think there is always a difference between the ERS data and NRMP data and how many overall people applied versus how many people get interviews and actually rank vascular surgery. Do we know that difference?
That's a great question, Dr. Lee. This was just NRMP data, and truth be told, I probably should have looked at ERS data as well. We didn't have these data, until last night, so I was scrambling a little bit to put it together. I'll have to get back to you. I'm not sure I can answer that properly.
I think if it's NRMP, then it's people who've ranked vascular surgery, is my understanding. Right? That's the consensus in the group. So 181 people would ranked vascular surgery program. So that's outstanding. So, our recruitment strategies are working. So great job to your team. I think our challenges are to continue to grow more programs. There has been an initiative to increase the number of programs. We sent out a couple of surveys this last year looking at some other options, some things that have been brought up, or creating programs to try and recruit some of the exceptional prelim residents that are out there that did not seem to get a lot of support. But for all of you out there thinking of adding a residency position, or if you have a residency and wanting to add a fellowship, I think we certainly have interest in the integrated program, and we need to do the same in our fellowship program to increase interest to get that applicant pool up. There's another question from Dr. Caligara. It says about 20 to 25% of applicants to vascular fellowships are DOs. Some DO programs are not ACGME accredited, and therefore those trainees cannot take ACGME vascular boards. New programs get cited for that trainee not passing the boards after the trainee graduates. Is this a problem? My understanding is that the DO programs have all opted into the same accreditation process. I don't know how many of those programs are not participating, but my understanding is that they all have the option to participate in a common ACGM equivalent. Anybody else have any information about that? I'm unfortunately not 100% clear.
No, my understanding was the same as you, Mary, that most of the DO programs are going under the banner of the ACGME.
So Dr. Harris says, I believe there was a timeline over which they had to convert or disappear.
Yeah, Joe Mills here. They're all enrolled in a common pathway, but not all DO programs have been accredited yet. It's a process.
Thanks, Joe. So maybe less of an issue going forward, Keith. Thank you, gentlemen. There are no other questions. We'll move on.
Dr. James, may I just, there's one question I really was interested in. Dr. Rigberg had put in here, is the APDFS working towards a consensus statement on remote versus in-person interviews? I'm concerned about inequities. And that's one thing that I wanted to sort of ask, how are we going to navigate this next year with...
Go ahead.
Just with the, how are we going to navigate this in-person versus Zoom options?
I think as this is an ongoing process. I think as we evolve and vaccines get distributed and our numbers go down, I think that there certainly could be in-person interviews. I personally thought the virtual interview process worked quite well. There's some disagreement around the room. I think there needs to be opportunities for people to do both. We did a survey a couple of years ago that looked at the cost overall of the students traveling, and it was more like $15,000. So I think for a lot of people, it is an absurd amount of money to go visit. And, especially if you're getting interviews in places that you may or may not even get a chance to really rank, I think we got to be really on our side, a little bit more, I'm trying to think of the right word. I think it's to just offer 30 interviews when you're only going to, when you're going to take maybe of that group, really only 10 people really have a good chance of matching. We just got to be, I think, more open to maybe giving less interviews to people if they're traveling. I don't know, it's complicated, Dave. And I think Dr. Lee has a response.
Yeah, I was just going to make the point. Last year, when we realized that the ENT program directors group, I think it was neurosurgery and pediatrics, I think, put out a statement from their sort of equivalent APDVS organization saying to shut off all in-person interviews. I think we kind of followed suit with that, more out of sort of aligning with other specialties. I think we have the choice this year as an organization, and I think that'll probably be one of the early things that comes out of today's meeting, is probably a quick poll to get the pulse, if you will, of the group, and figure out whether, number one, should we have a consensus statement? Number two, should we all fall in line and do the same thing? Number three, if we fall in line and all do the same thing, all politics being local, there are probably some outsider or some other folks that might want to do it a different way. So I think we'll have to be careful and cognizant of making sure that individual programs, feel like their voice is heard. So I think this conversation will continue in the next couple of weeks. And I think we have to make even decisions about virtual versus away sub-Is. I can tell you, for us at Stanford, the School of Medicine is allowing away sub-Is to start in September. I have no idea how they came to that decision or why they even picked that day, California being the most locked down state in the enterprise. But that's what we've been told. And, as you might imagine, we're already getting applications. So I think we all, personally, I think we should kind of fall or have kind of an APDVS best practices, but perhaps give people some flexibility too.
There's a question for PDs of integrated residencies. Did the match play out the way you expected this year? Any surprises? I thought it went very well for us personally. I think that I agree with everything that's been said. Perhaps we can get a poll before the end of the meeting on what people think. I would agree that we should all do things the same way. I think it would be very unfair, especially after what we learned yesterday about bias. And if it's, if some rain makes you, judge people differently, certainly their willingness to come to an in-person interview might sway you one way or another. And we do need to be fair. I think we do need like Dr. Escobar is commenting, candidates limiting the number of applications. I think this year was I think the 181, and I know that every program got a lot of applications and then gave out more interviews than they would normally give. I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and we have to come up with it. I think there's a lot of comments here on the side about fairness and giving people an opportunity to visit the places, but perhaps we could do the interviews virtually, and if students wanted to visit or residents wanted to visit, they could set up separate times to do that. Bridget's bringing up, Dr. Smith bringing up, ENT did something called signaling. We had actually decided not to participate last year, but it was a system in which the applicants signed up and the program signed up to limit the number of overlapping interviews and overlapping applications. And I don't know how that worked yet. We'll have to get some data.
Joanna just mentioned we can do a poll.
I think
Because this is, I think based on the chat right now, this is so hot, if you will, I would propose that we can ask some quick questions. And because we have 79 people logged in, we're going to type in a poll, and then maybe during another break here. I think people on the call want to perhaps know which way this is going, and so give us a few minutes to work on a poll maybe as we get to the next topic. But we will come back to this. The poll will specifically be about: should we have a consensus statement? Should we have a uniform way to do sub-Is? Should we have a uniform way to do interviews? Okay, we'll start working on that.
Thank you, Jason, and Loay and John. Thank you.